Alrighty, we're live. This is Chargers Truther, Arjun Menon, Chargers fan who does analytics. I'm very happy to have him on. I'm gonna just copy this link and put it on Twitter real quick. So maybe while I'm doing this, Arjun, you could just talk about your background and whatever, however you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. Right now, I'm a senior at the University of Michigan. I'm originally from Orange County, California, so have been kind of a Chargers fan my whole life since that was the team I grew up around. So really started following football from an early age, and then really got more invested in it around 2018 when the Chargers had their playoff run. And from there, it's just been trying to become more knowledgeable about the game of football and increasing the amount of investment and time I've put into it. So, really love football in general, and being a Chargers fan has its ups and downs, but I think for the most part, it's still a fun game to follow and be able to analyze.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And yeah, I love that 2018 season when we went into the playoffs, beat the Ravens. That was, I think, our last great season.
Mhm.
Still waiting for us to reach that point again. But yeah, so intro aside, now we're gonna just talk quickly about the Jets game that just happened last night, and then we're gonna get to some points that we have disagreed in the past. So, what are your thoughts on that Jets game last night? What do you think?
Well, it was an ugly win just because the offense didn't really do too much, but I wasn't too concerned. I came into this game thinking the Jets defense was gonna kind of dominate that game just because their D line is super good, have the best corner trio in the league. And I was talking about this today on Twitter, but Justin Herbert was pressured on 59.5% of his dropbacks yesterday, which is the third highest number of any game for any offense in the NFL this season. The only two other games where teams have allowed a higher pressure percentage to their quarterback are the Raiders last week, where they scored 7 offensive points, and then the Giants in week 1 against the Cowboys, where they scored 0 points. So the fact that the Chargers put up 20 points, even if they were kind of helped by their defense, a lot of that, didn't turn the ball over, which I think was a big positive. I wasn't like impressed, but I also wasn't like dismayed by the offensive output. And yeah, like the defense dominated, and Zach Wilson obviously has shown he's not a great quarterback. So I do think there is some positives to take away from the defense. That the D line is really looking good. Their run defense is really good this season. But I don't want to put too much stock into beating up on Tyson Bagent and Zach Wilson. And I think we need to see them perform against a legit offense like the Lions, who they are playing this weekend.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with that. I think that Justin Herbert didn't even throw for 150 yards. It wasn't a very offensive, a productive offensively game for us. It was mainly a defense that won us that game. Pretty much turned the ball over, I think, 3 times. Like 2 fumbles from Zach Wilson, one more from Garrett Wilson. Um, and very happy with how our defense has been playing this entire year. Sorry. Hey, am I choppy or anything right now?
Your video is like a little bit in and out, but I can still hear you fine.
Is it- Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your video goes in and out a little bit, but I can still hear you.
All right. Okay, I'm just if I cut out, you can't hear me. Just speak up, I guess.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so yeah, what I think about that game, great. Our defense stopped their run, shut down Zach Wilson. Yeah, Zach Wilson is not doesn't seem like he's very good of a quarterback. And it was a good win. We got to 4-4. Just happy to handle our business, and I'm mainly happy that Justin Herbert didn't have to be a superhero and throw the ball 40, 50 times a game to win that. So yeah, I'm happy we took care of business, and that's all I really got to say about that.
Yep, I agree.
Alrighty, so now I think we get to some things that we've disagreed upon in the past. What would you start with? Maybe ask me a question and I'll answer it.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we've disagreed on a lot. I think it starts with the run game. But I think in general, we both want the Chargers to have an efficient run game. Like I want the Chargers to have an efficient run game. You want that also, right? We can agree on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't think
Yes.
I've ever said I don't want the Chargers to have an efficient run game. Like if they could run for 200 yards every game, that's great. If they can average 5 yards a carry, that's great. I think where we disagree is how important it is for the Chargers to have a good run game. And just in general, like how important running the ball is in football. It's important for sure. Like you need to be able to run the ball to keep the defense honest. Like you can't drop back 100% of the time, but you also don't. I think the idea of having a balanced attack in terms of 50-50 split is also overrated. So I'm going to say one point. I'm going to ask, and then I'll ask you a question. So I was looking at some stats in the last 5 years. So I was looking at conference championship teams in the last 5 years and where they've ranked in terms of passing efficiency and rushing efficiency. So in terms of passing efficiency, 19 out of the 20 teams who have made the conference championships in the last 5 years have ranked in the top 10 in terms of passing efficiency. Only 13 of the 20 have ranked in the top 10 in terms of rushing efficiency. And the one team that missed out on the top 10 was the Packers in 2019, where they were 11th. So basically almost a top 10 team. Now, my question to you, like, I've heard you talk about like the Chargers need to run the ball to win. They have to be a good running team to win. They have to run the ball better than the other team. Just in this season, I think we've seen a couple games where that's not, hasn't come true. So in week 1, the Chargers ran for 233 yards and the Dolphins ran for 70. So the Chargers ran for 163 more yards and they lost. In week 3, the Chargers played the Vikings. They ran for 30 yards. The Vikings ran for 130 yards and the Chargers ran for 100 less yards and they won. Against the Chiefs, the Chargers ran for 139 yards. The Chiefs ran for 68 yards. So the Chargers ran for 71 more yards and they lost. And then against the Bears, who don't have a great defense, the Chargers only ran for 54 yards. The Bears ran for 73 yards. So the Chargers ran for 19 less rush yards than the Bears, and they won. So, like, there are examples where we've seen the Chargers have the worst rushing attack, and they've won. And then they've had the better rushing attack, and they've lost. So I'm just curious, like after seeing that and hearing that, like, how much do you think the run game matters? Like, you don't, like, it kind of seems like you don't need to run the ball well to be able to win. So that's just from my perspective what I saw.
Yeah. Well, a lot to consider in what you just said. I'm trying to think where to start, but obviously this is a team game, right? There's a lot of factors. Obviously there's the run game, the pass game, the defense, and also the special teams. And everything matters, and I would obviously agree, and I think everyone would agree that the pass game is the most important part of football. It's not even a question. Obviously, the teams that win have the great quarterbacks for the most part that can, throw the ball really well. But what we've seen from the Chargers in history, I'm going back years, and what I've seen is that we just have our quarterback doing so much, throwing the ball so often. Defense sometimes is good enough to help win that game, but a lot of times the rush game is lacking, and it forces the quarterback. Look, when you run the ball first down and you get 1 yard, you're second and 9, and then you have to throw the ball. You're already behind the chains, and that puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback, on the whole team to make up for that 1 yard, run. So if we can, what I said was, or at least what I mean is that obviously you don't need the run game to win a game, but if you want to go to the Super Bowl, you want to go deep, you really should have that run game present, I believe, because again, we've had the quarterback, we've had Herbert, and that's not enough. Yes, there's the defense. I think that the run game is incredibly important to our success, any team success, but I'm focusing on the Chargers. And yeah, you're saying like we've lost games where we outrushed the opponent, and we've won games where we, didn't ball well. And, that's very true. But I think that more often than not, if you run the ball better than the other team, you should probably, you have better chance to win that game. It only helps to run the ball. And it's very deep. It's very complex. My opinion on the run game. I'm just tired of being this high flying team that's gonna, out dance you out, juke you out of your shoes. I want to just, you know, run the ball up middle, out physical that team, and just dominate them. And that's what I think about that. What do you? How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, obviously, like, yeah, it's running on 1st and 10 and going to 2nd and 9 isn't great. But that's also why, like, we disagree, where it's like the chart you're saying you want to take the ball out of Herbert's hands when he's a top 5 quarterback. Like, I feel like if you have a top 5 quarterback, you want the ball in his hands as much as possible. And especially if your run game is so bad and your pass game is really good, where the Chargers, you can argue, have like a top 6, top 7 passing attack, like it didn't show last night, but the Jets are good. On average, the Chargers are like a top 7, top 8 passing attack, and they have a bottom 5 rushing attack. Why wouldn't you want to do the thing that works more versus the thing that works less? And the average yards per pass or drop back is going to be more than the yards per carry for the Chargers, especially, but just in general. So, you talk about balance and wanting to run the ball more, but like even last year, the Chargers passed the ball 67% of the time, right? And the two AFC teams in the conference championships, the Bengals and the Chiefs, passed the ball 66% of the time. So they didn't have balance either, but they still were a great offense. And so that's where I'm just confused, where it's like you do a great job of like promoting Herbert and praising him, but at the same time you want to take the ball out of his hands to give it to an inefficient running attack, when I think we've seen Herbert be able to have a great passing efficiency despite the high volume. So can you like explain like why you want to run the ball more when it doesn't work instead of passing it more when it's more efficient?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say to that is the problem begins in the off season, where the guy I'm most upset at is our general manager, Tom Telesco. Maybe we'll come back to this, but it starts in the off season when you're building your roster. Why is our rush offense not good? I believe it's because we don't, prioritize these rush offense traits in our line, in our tight ends, in our running backs. We have Eckler, who's small. He's not really a power up the middle back. So I just see that our general manager is not prioritizing the rush offense. When you have a rush offense that is not efficient, is not good, it doesn't make sense to run the ball more. And I'm not really saying to keep running it and getting 1 yard. I'm saying to just build the team and invest so that we can run the ball. Yes, Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, for sure. And yeah, you want him to have the ball in his hands, but the pass offense is always going to be more risky. There's a risk that he's going to get sacked, he's going to fumble, or that he throws a batted pass and have an interception. When the ball is more secure, you just hand him the ball and maybe he fumbles, but less chance for a turnover. And yeah, the pass game, you move down the field quicker, get more yards that way. But as we've seen with Justin Herbert, we've seen him throwing the ball 40 to 50 times a game, and we're still not even winning. We're still not even succeeding. So in my mind, I'm just thinking we need to try something else, and we need to diversify our offense. And that's my whole point on the Chargers, I believe. Just, don't force Herbert to throw, but throw when the time's right, I believe.
Yeah, no, I get it. And like, yeah, I've wanted the Chargers to have an efficient run game. And I mean, it sucks when you can't run the ball out or run the clock out and chew up clock at the end of games. Like, that's what lost us the Jaguars game. But I think, that kind of leads into where we also disagree about the investment they need to make, not necessarily in the run game, but I think in the running back position. Because like they've invested a lot in this offensive line. Like, I think you wanted them to take an offensive lineman high, but like if we look at the Staley Telesco tenure, they in their first year they signed Rashawn Slater, or they drafted Rashawn Slater in the first round. They signed Corey Linsley to a top of the market deal. Like, they made him the highest paid center in NFL history. They also signed Matt Filer to a pretty good sized mid market deal for guard. Next year, they draft Zion in the first round. So they took O-line in back-to-back years. And then this past offseason, they signed Trey Pipkins, a third-round pick, to a mid-market extension. Now, I don't think he's played up to that extension, which is obviously an issue. But, like, how can you justify taking an offensive lineman in 3 straight years in the first round, which you've said you wanted them to do? Like, don't you think they need to diversify their investment in other positions in that case, instead of just investing in offensive linemen just so they can run the ball better?
Yeah. Yeah, that's valid. And first of all, you're talking about how Tom Telesco and Staley, mainly Telesco, though, in my opinion, who makes the decisions, has invested a lot in this offensive line. And you're right about that. But he invested in the starters in the top level. And I'm concerned with the deeper, the backups, because every year they get hurt. There's guys that get hurt, and then the backups are now, in question, and they need to step up and perform. So our backs aren't good enough. It's like you need to be. I think our general manager is not doesn't have the plan B, or like the backup plan for when things inevitably happen like that. So yeah, picking an offensive lineman in this round, this past draft, like I suggested, I didn't say I needed it. It was a must, but I said I would. Yeah, that sounds a little ridiculous, because maybe he would be a backup, but I think that it only helps our offensive line, which has struggled for as long as I can really remember. If you can't run the ball, you're going to look at the offensive line and question it. So if we have a first rounder sitting on the bench on that offensive line, he will get his chance eventually. We'll move. You saw Salyer play left tackle almost all last season. So there's things that can be moved around, and I don't want to be caught out when our offensive line gets injuries. I want to have backup plans to just, step up and have us not miss a step. And as you've seen, we drafted Quentin Johnson, who hasn't really done much. I'm sure we still have hope for him, but if you miss on a first round pick, it sucks, but it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, and yeah, like, I mean, obviously Quentin Johnson was drafted to be a backup, so obviously the Chargers did draft a backup in that sense. But I think just in general, like, going into the draft, would you agree that the Chargers had pretty much their entire starting offense and defense filled out? Like, they were going to draft a backup kind of regardless, unless it was linebacker, which, like, they would have been replacing Kenneth Murray or maybe the third linebacker spot. But just in general, or maybe safety, like they would have replaced Lohi Gilman. But otherwise, they had their 3 corners, they had their D line, they had Kendricks and Murray, they had Derwin, so defense is filled out. They had their 5 starting linemen, they had Palmer at receiver 3. Like, they had every position filled, right? So you're going to draft a backup regardless. So, like, I feel like drafting one at a premium position, which is receiver or edge, like, that made the most sense. So obviously I had Zay Flowers higher than Quentin Johnson, and obviously he's the one producing, but yeah, I think, like, just in general, they were going to draft a backup. And so I think it's more likely for a receiver backup to kind of get more snaps than a offensive lineman backup, because there's ways you can get them involved, which is what I was arguing for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. We had, for the most part, starters across the board, offense and defense, but they might have been starters, but were they, can they be improved upon? Can we bring in competition to take their spots? I think absolutely. Sebastian Joseph Day at D tackle, I was also very interested in that D tackle spot. I think we can improve there. Rams have Aaron Donald, obviously gonna expect to get that, but we shouldn't just have Sebastian Joseph Day, I believe, and just be cool with that and just run back. I think that's just one position I think that we should be trying to get better at. And yeah, gonna draft a backup. You say that, premium positions, receiver, edge, it makes sense. We got Thule and we got Quinn Johnson, but I'm just skeptical on the idea of premium positions. I believe that the premium position is whatever you need the most help at. So
I guess,
our
like,
offensive line.
yeah, sorry, you finish.
I would just say I would just say our offensive line has kind of struggled throughout the years. So in my opinion, throwing more resources at that would be a good thing, I believe. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I guess just like real quick, like the way it's not what I think is premium. I'm going on based on what the NFL thinks is a premium position. And the way I would look at that is just like how much money are they allocating to each position, right? So receivers after quarterbacks, like receivers and edges make the most money on average, right? And then it's like interior defense alignment. We saw like Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, they all got big deals, right? And then from there, it's like corner and then offensive tackle. So like you can kind of see like the tiers of how not me, not just some random person, but the NFL, the 32 NFL teams view the position market. So when I say premium, it's based on what, the people in the NFL think, not what I think. So that, that's where I'm coming from. And that's why I have always like, been an advocate of drafting a premium position high, just because if you can get a cheap player who's good, or sorry, you can go.
Now, I'll just say it also depends on who you already have on your team as well, Like I understand, edge super important, receiver super important, but we already have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen with huge contracts. We also have Joey Bosa, Mac with huge contracts. There's also other positions on our team that we haven't put that much money towards. And in my opinion, that would kind of factor into where the priorities lie in terms of positions.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about like how much investing in the running back position they should do. Honestly, we can just have that conversation, but like I know you like to talk about some of the elite teams and how they've built their teams. So I did some research. So the last time the Eagles took a running back in the first round was 1983. Last time the Chiefs took a running back in the first round was 2020. The next year they lost in the conference championship, or yeah, they lost in the conference championship, and then he got benched for Isaiah Pacheco, who's a seventh rounder, and now he's a third string guy. The last time the 49ers
Mhm.
took a first round running back, 1994. Last time the Bengals took a running back, 2004, and then the last time the Bills took a running back was 2010. So in terms of drafting, none of the great franchises right now have taken one and have had success with that player. And real quick before, and the second part is paying running backs, right? Which we can go to the Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler conversation, but just in general, in the last couple of years, we've seen some running backs get paid a lot of money, right? So I just wanted to list off the playoff wins that teams have had after paying a running back big money. So after the Panthers gave Christian McCaffrey the richest deal in NFL history for running back, they have 0 playoff wins. After the Saints paid Alvin Kamara, 0 playoff wins. After the Cowboys paid Ezekiel Elliott, 1 playoff win. And that was a game where Dak Prescott won that game, threw for 300 plus yards. Zeke didn't really do much. After the Titans paid Derrick Henry, 0 playoff wins. After the Browns paid Nick Chubb, 0 playoff wins. And after the Packers paid Aaron Jones, 0 playoff wins. And he had to take a pay cut. So those are just some top running backs running backs who've gotten paid top end money. And we haven't seen any success from those teams. Whereas teams like the Eagles, who let Miles Sanders, who ran for 1,000 yards multiple times in his career, walk in free agency, have had success finding other running backs, cheap running backs in the draft or in free agency. Same with the Chiefs, who found value in Isaiah Pacheco and not paying a running back big money. They've had a lot of success. So can you, kind of talk about like why the Chargers should make an investment in a running back either high in the draft or pay them big money when we've seen that not work out for any of the top teams in the league?
Yeah. Um, yeah, again, a lot to consider in your statements there. Um, my first thought is, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. There's not a lot of running backs being drafted high up in the draft, and there's not a lot of successful teams that have paid a lot of money to their running backs. But those teams that you mentioned who pay their running backs don't really have quarterbacks, so it's complex. They don't really, you know, when you're talking about Browns, who was their quarterback? The Saints. That was after Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it you have to consider the other factors. So regarding why I believe the Chargers should pay the running back is that, well, not talking about Austin Eckler. Why I wanted them to draft a running back first round or sign a big back is because our run game sucks. And one way you fix the run game, or one way to help it, is to get a good running back. And a lot of people may, disagree or think, want to. I'll let you respond to that. But my last sentence regarding that would just be, um, you know, having a good running back is only going to help the team. So if you got to spend a little bit of money to try something, try and fix it, then I honestly, by all means, I think that we should.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, obviously, if there's a running back who's better than what the Chargers have on the roster, then yeah, I mean, they should. I would want that player on my team, but it depends on the investment you have to make. And I think like, you know, I'm not totally on the running backs don't matter train, because there are running backs who do matter in this league. Like Nick Chubb matters, Christian McCaffrey
Yeah.
matters to an extent. In his prime, Derrick Henry matters. Like Alvin Kamara in his prime matters. Like I don't think that
Eckler matters.
Eckler, like last year he was a big part of our offense in terms of his receiving ability. But but when you don't have one of those game-changing top 5 running backs, I don't think the difference in value there is that big. And that's why and we've seen you can draft running backs late in the draft and have them produce. And I don't think drafting a first round running back is like a lock that they're going to be a good player, which is also my point.
Yeah, and that's very true, as we saw with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But a lot of the first round running backs do work. Bijan has looked good, Gibbs has looked good. And yeah, you can definitely find a good running back late, Isaiah Pacheco, but I'm just talking about the Chargers mainly. And we've done Larry Roundtree, and Josh, who's that other running back, number 32 that we let go like last year? Josh Jackson, I think.
Justin Jackson.
Just Jackson. And we got Isaiah Spiller, and Josh Kelly has been the best of those, but that's like 4 running backs that really never reached any big contributor spot or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Josh Kelly has been pretty good, but would he really become an RB1? I don't know. So I'm just tired of doing this late round stuff. I want to just be aggressive. Yeah, it might hurt. It might turn out to be a waste, to be stupid, but I'm tired of doing the same things and just waiting for things to click. I want to try something different. And if that means making a aggressive move, paying a big running back, first round running back, to try and spark something, I'm all for that. That's what I would do.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And I mean, yeah, I can be frank and say I don't think the Chargers have done a good job scouting running backs in the past 4 years. Like Josh Kelly, he's really only broken out kind of this year. He's still kind of inefficient, but I think he's done a little bit better than Eckler running the ball. And yeah, the Roundtree pick was terrible, and Spiller can't even get active on game day. So yeah, like the Chargers haven't done a great job scouting running back since Anthony Lynn has left, which that could also be a thing. Anthony Lynn, former running backs coach, just had a good eye, right? But I don't necessarily think that justifies an investment, especially in the first round for a running back. Just because you can't scout them late doesn't mean you have to take one early. Because again, like it's not a lock that this running back pans out. And if you took a running back in the first round, first of all, you're going to be paying them money that puts them instantly at like the top 15 of their position group. Because you're taking them in the first round, they're going to have a higher salary, which means you need them to produce to justify them being a top 15 back, right? Whereas if you take a receiver in the first round at 21, like the Chargers did, they don't have to be great right away, because they're being paid like they're like a top 30, top 40 receiver. So that's kind of like my argument against that, because like if you take a running back in the first round, like you need them to produce right away. And especially this year with Gibbs and Bijan off the board, like you're not going to take Zach Charbonnet in the first round. Like he wasn't a first round talent. Would you agree? Or you could disagree if you want,
I
but
agree.
like,
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So at least this year, I didn't think there was any value in them taking a running back at 21. And in general, in future years, like for them to take a running back in the first round, like this guy would have to be kind of like Bijan level. And he I don't know, they would have to have a complete roster, like a very, very complete roster for years filled with guys on cheap rookie contracts for that to be justified. But I just think the kind of points I brought brought up in terms of good teams not drafting in the first round running backs, and then not paying a lot of money to running backs kind of explain why I'm kind of against that big investment. But I'm okay with like paying a little, like paying money here and there to players who will return, like give a good ROI on that investment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you were saying like it's not worth it to draft a first round running back because we're going to be paying him at the top of the running backs in the NFL. What they make. But I'm trying to see it past like position wise. They're still going to probably be making less than an average receiver. So I honestly would break the mold or whatever and throw money at that running back position because again, if we're going to go back, this might bring us into the next topic, but I'm going to bring up Melvin Gordon because we went 12-4. We had a good run game with Melvin Gordon. He was a first round pick. And would you agree that in that 12-4 season, he was a very good player and a very good running back for us, right?
Yeah, I bought his jersey after the year. That's how much I liked him that year.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I find it interesting that the 4 games he missed, the Chargers went 4-0. And they beat the Chiefs and the Steelers, who were both. The Steelers didn't make. I don't think the Steelers made the playoffs that year, but they had a damn good team. And then they went on the road, short week against the Chiefs, and they won in Arrowhead without Melvin Gordon. So it's like, yeah, he was a great player, but in terms of like, I'm not going to attribute the win solely to him being out. Like, there's other factors, but like, if he meant that much to the Chargers, I don't think they would have gone 100% winning with him out, especially against the competition that they faced. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's hard for me to, deny that or come up with a counter argument against that. But I would ask you, you would agree that he was a very big part of that team that
Yeah.
went 12-4.
He was important for sure. Like, I mean, yeah, like in the games he played, very efficient,
Yeah.
forced a lot of missed tackles. I thought he broke a lot of tackles, and that was his best season I've ever seen from him. So yeah, I'm not going to deny that he was not an important part of that team. He was an important part of that team. I think like where we've disagreed in the past is like, oh, he held out in 2019, and that specifically is the reason the Chargers didn't do well. Where I think there's a lot of other factors there. Okung didn't play for like pretty much the whole year. He missed the first 6 games. Like Derwin pretty much missed the entire season. Adrian Phillips gets hurt. The offensive line was the second worst graded offensive line by PFF, which like, you can disagree with PFF grades if you want, but I think there's a lot of other factors outside of what you brought up in terms of Melvin holding out that says otherwise to why the Chargers struggled after he held out.
Yeah. There's always going to be a lot of factors in football and, in life in general. Tons of factors to consider. But, listen, I'm an obsessive Chargers fan. Like, I am really, I watch everything. I watch all the plays, every game. I'm sure maybe you do too. And what I saw in 2018 was that the team was like clicking on all cylinders, right? It was finishing games. It was running the ball. It was Phil Rivers was doing great with the deep balls to Tyrell Williams. Defense was stepping up, finishing. It was like clicking on all cylinders, right? And my problem with Tom Telesco is when he didn't pay Melvin Gordon, I still think he still kind of disrespected him a little bit by, maybe that's another topic, but whatever. He didn't pay him. And that kind of threw things off, like in the locker room, in the just the chemistry, it's just like, why would we, I would just like to see us try and keep this together and go forward. But when we did that to Melvin Gordon, you would agree that it's at least a small step backwards, right?
I mean, maybe like I don't really know the locker room dynamics, but I would assume that yeah, like players are usually going to side with the players, but I don't know to the extent how much that affects performance. I mean, we saw Chris Jones miss week 1, and he comes back. He's still one of the best defensive tackles in the game. The Chiefs have a top 4, top 5 defense, despite him holding out, despite that kind of holdout affecting the locker room, right? Like. And at the end of the day, the Chiefs didn't even pay Chris Jones. They made him take a pay cut and take a contract with incentives right? So like again, that's kind of just a situation where like I don't really blame Telesco. I don't blame Melvin. Like I know Telesco offered him something. I don't, and Melvin didn't take it. He thought he was worth more. And at the end of the day, he bet on himself. It didn't really work out, and he had to take a lesser deal from the Broncos. But I think there's other cases where players have held out, and it hasn't really affected team performance. The Chiefs are probably the best. The Chiefs are the best team in the AFC, and they have one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yes. But another thing you have to consider is, we're not the Chiefs. Like we're, we're the Chargers. The Chiefs have won Super Bowls. They've been successful. So yeah, the guy's gonna want to stick around. That's definitely a big factor. And I just believe that the Chargers, the management is just bad. I think Tom Telesco has bad player relations. The Eric Weddle thing, if you've heard about that,
Mm-hmm.
Eric Weddle doesn't like Tom Telesco. Melvin Gordon had that thing. Austin Eckler has having problems. And it's just like, I don't hear stuff like that happening with the Chiefs, where there's like animosity. So it's just, I think, we're getting deeper and deeper. We're getting into the deeper issues, which I believe come from our general manager, Tom Telesco, and probably our owners. But to bring it back to the Melvin Gordon thing, I think that Melvin Gordon was working hard for us. He was really motivated. He was down for the Chargers, and he was helping us win. Then he feels disrespected by the team, throws off his mentality. And, mentality is huge in football, sports, life in general. And it kind of like throws a wrench in the machine, that we had going. And I really, that made me really upset at Tom Telesco, especially when we went back to 5-11 and just like, yeah, dude, I don't think this guy's running this team properly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's your opinion, and obviously you're able to have that. I think like the whole Melvin Gordon mentality thing, that's going to be tough, like to really measure. Even just watching, like that's a very subjective opinion, and I think there's other factors, like I talked about with the offensive line. I mean, there were games where like Ryan Groy was starting for the Chargers. You had rookie Trey Pipkin starting at left tackle. You had Sam Tevy playing, like Forrest Lamp gets hurt in the middle of the season. So I think there was other things that led to the running game declining in 2019 that wasn't Melvin Gordon. The whole Melvin Gordon holdout. I think injuries played a part, and also the Chargers not having a passing game that opposing defenses respected. I think that allowed teams to stack the box a little bit more and made it harder to run. So I like you talked about context. I think solely attributing the Chargers' decline offensively and their ability to run the ball in 2019, I don't put that all on Melvin Gordon. And I think there's other things at play there.
I'm not saying it was all on because of the Melvin Gordon thing, but I think the Melvin Gordon thing played a big role in that decline, and that's what I think.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Okay, so I mean, dang, I don't know what conclusion we reached there, but at the end of the day, I believe Melvin Gordon should have been. I think we should have paid him. We should have kept him. Maybe, and you disagree? You think that we made the right move?
I think we let go of him at the right time, just not because, or he did decline, I think, a little bit in Denver. And obviously the last couple of years he's fumbled a lot, but I think we let go of him at the right time with Austin Eckler stepping up and being a productive player for us. So I don't mind letting an older player walk with more volume to let a younger player with less wear and tear on their body have a chance at producing more and for the lesser cost.
But Austin Eckler and Gordon are very different types of running backs as well.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. But I think, in 2020 and 2021, we saw the Chargers have a top 10 offense with Austin Eckler as the primary back. And last year they were just super banged up along the offensive line and receiver position. So I don't know. Like I think like I think the 2020 and 2021 seasons kind of showed me that you don't need a true bell cow back, and you can use Austin Eckler as your RB1 without having a true running mate. It'd be nice to find one, but I don't think it's necessary just because we've seen the Chargers produce well offensively with Eckler as your number one.
Well, then I mostly disagree there, and maybe we could move on. But I just don't think Austin Eckler as an RB1 is good enough for us to, we could do better. We could be better there, and we should try and be better. And that's that's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I think we should talk about what you've kind of suggested, like this offseason. Like I know you had a video about how you would fix the Chargers, and one of the moves you suggested was that they should sign Dalvin Cook for $8 million a year, which again, like I disagreed with a lot just because again, that's a lot of money to be paying to a running back, especially at the way the running back market is right now. He'd be
Mm-hmm.
in terms of running backs who are making or who have a multi-year deal, he would rank seventh. So you're paying him top seven money. Currently, he's averaging 2.8 yards per carry, which is the third worst in the NFL. Austin
Mm-hmm.
Eckler, who you also said you would extend in that video for 3 years. Outside, if we filter out that week one game where he ran all over the Dolphins, but so did Josh Kelly. If we factor that game out, he's averaging 2.6 yards per carry, which is the worst in the NFL. So, these are two moves you suggested, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they've worked out for either team. Or I guess the Chargers didn't really extend Eckler, but like the two moves you suggested, I think the ROI or the return on that deal you would have suggested, it wouldn't have looked good so far. And Joshua Kelly has a higher yards per carry than all the two I mentioned, and Melvin Gordon, who's sitting on the Ravens practice squad. So, that was obviously one I wasn't really in favor with, and I'm curious to hear if you still think they should have done that, or if would you backtrack on that statement?
No, but I'll tell you. Well, those are two different uh, topics, two different things. Eckler and Cook, and yes, the Cook thing probably might have been wrong there, and nobody's perfect, but it was a move of aggression to just do something. Yeah, maybe it's not going to work out, but fuck it, just bring in a big running back. Let's try something. Let's not just run it back with the same guys that struggled. Um, if it works out, then great, we got a better team. If it doesn't, then all right, fine. We eat that money, and it hurts, but at least we tried. And I don't think Dalvin Cook is terrible. I think he would still, at least push for carries. But yeah, he hasn't looked very good. He hasn't looked very good this season. I'm not gonna lie. Um, so maybe I was wrong there. But Austin Eckler, yeah, this guy is not an inside runner. He's not very efficient at all, and I've known that. I've known it for a long time. But at the same time, he's still a very productive player for us. He's one of our best offensive weapons in the pass game as well. Um, and someone like Austin Eckler, who has given us 40 touchdowns in the past like 2-3 seasons, given us a ton of production, and sacrificed his body so much for us. I just believe, just based off that alone, he deserves a reward. And maybe it's not gonna be fruitful for us in the long term, but it goes to a deeper point, in my opinion, which maybe will sound crazy or something like that, but it's about building the foundation of respect. If you work hard for us, if you dedicate yourself and give it 100%, you will be rewarded. And that's the precedent that should be set. It's not, we shouldn't have a running back like Eckler that's smashing, getting all these yards, doing so much for us, and then at the end we're just gonna be like, nah, fuck you, we're not gonna pay you. Like that's just I really don't like that. So
I mean, to me, it sounds like you're like an agent, not a GM, because you're advocating for the Chargers to overpay their running backs just so the players will still stay happy. Because right now, like I said, Eckler's averaging 2.6 yards per carry outside of week one. Like that is not a $7 million guy. His receiving value has not been good either. So like, why should they? So they should just overpay players just so they build a foundation. Like I don't really understand that, because it doesn't seem like that's a smart team building approach.
yeah, I understand that. What I didn't add there was, look, I said to pay Eckler and get Dalvin Cook. So pay Eckler and then get another inside runner who can, be productive running up the middle, like we had with Gordon and Eckler. You can't just have Eckler, like as we're seeing now. You have to use him what he's best at, getting him in space and stuff like that, switching up the tempo. So yeah, I'm for investing in the running back position more than just Eckler, and yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I guess my question to you is like, what successful NFL team has ever paid two running backs $7 million plus? Like both of them are. What you're suggesting is that they should have paid both Dalvin Cook and Eckler $7 million or more for multiple years. And I'm asking you, what successful NFL franchise has ever done that and gone to the playoffs, won a Super Bowl that you are going to use as your evidence versus just like, oh, I'm just going to pay these players because I think running backs are super important and I want to reward these players. Like, can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, no, I don't have any team I could point to support my case. Ideally, what I would have done was I would have paid Eckler and draft a first or second round running back, so he would be cheaper or whatever. Um, but yeah, it might sound stupid or might sound silly, but when our run game is so bad year after year after year, I'm tired, dude. Just fucking do it. Just try. There'll be 2-3 year deals. They might be a little hefty for running back, but um, you know, let's try something. I'm trying to do new things, with this team, not the same.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And again, you're able to have your own opinion on the matter. Again, like the way I've always kind of viewed team building is like what has worked and what hasn't. And like I'm all, I respect that you want to try something new. That it could work, it probably won't just because no team has ever done it. And there's probably a reason no team has ever done it because they don't think it's going to be successful. And I think that much investment in the run game, it only gets you to a certain point, and eventually you have to be, again, from my stance, have to be able to beat Mahomes. You have to be able to beat Josh Allen, and the way you beat them is you have to be able to, outscore them. And just in general, passing the ball will lead to more scoring than running. You might disagree there, but just I think that's just how I feel about that. So even the whole pay a running back and draft one early, like I don't think any team has really ever done that, and there's probably a reason for that. But again, like you're able to have your own opinion, and I totally understand where you want to come from that angle.
Yeah, and again, I'm not disagreeing about the pass game. Yes, that's the most utmost important thing, and we've seen our pass game be great for a long time now. I think, um, but I'm kind of chasing that 2018 season still when we had Gordon, we had Eckler, the two-headed monster. And we had our best season in a long time with that formula. And I'm kind of trying to get back to that. I don't want to just be one-dimensional throw, throw, throw. I want to, yeah, I think that we need to draft a first-round running back in this coming draft or second round or something big. We need something there.
Okay, but if there is, say we pick in the late teens or the 20s like we were, and say there's only one first round caliber running back, like there, say like Dane Brugler or Mel Kiper only has one first round grade on a running back, and he gets taken before us. You'd want to overdraft a running back, or would you be okay like taking a different position?
Yeah, it depends. But keep in mind, we traded up for Melvin Gordon, I believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, but then again, like we traded up for Melvin Gordon and like one playoff win, and again, like you talked about it, Tom Telesco, what two playoff wins in his tenure, right? If we want to talk playoff wins, that trade really only worked out to be one playoff win and only 1,000 yard season. So how well did it really work out? He had a great season in 20. He probably would have gone over 1,000 if he played 16 games in 2018. But again, being available and being healthy is also part of playing running back position. And
Mhm.
because of the nature of the running back position, like you're taking on inherent injury risk when you draft one in the first round. So and to your point about like the 2018 year, like chasing that year, like the Chargers ranked third in passing efficiency and then they ranked fifth in rushing efficiency. But at the end of the day, I feel like their passing efficiency kind of drove them to that finish. Like in games like the Chiefs game and the Steelers game, they won because Phillip Rivers had a great game throwing the ball. And even in the playoff game against the Ravens, like yeah, their only touchdown was through the ground, but other than that, they weren't efficient really running the ball. So I understand wanting to chase that high again, and I think the way we get back there is just having an elite passing attack. And once teams have to respect the pass, I think that opens up things a little bit more in the run game.
I think, yeah, I mostly agree. Again, I think it's just a mixture, run and the pass.
Yeah.
Both are important, and we haven't really been both. We've just been pass. And yeah, that's I don't know. that's all I really got for that. Are you good on that topic?
Hmm.
All right. I don't know. I don't know what we conclude on here, but yeah. Well, I mean, I get what you're saying. Hopefully, you get what I'm saying. Um, so, what do you want to talk about next? I got to go in about 10 minutes. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be just a good way to wrap up if we talk about the whole, playing football thing. I'll address the kind of elephant in the room. We had one thread where I made a joke about, playing football in high school. I went on Max Preps and I used the inspect element. I'm not going to hide from that. I don't think it's that big of an issue that I did that, because I think people have photoshopped worse things. And again, it was all in good fun, and I had a reason for deleting that, the whole thing, just because there were things that got out that I didn't want to get out. Um, but I've never played, and I don't think that's inhibited me from doing stuff in football, working in football, getting an offer from the Jets. Like, they've never asked me in my interviews, like, did you play football at any level? And I think we've seen NFL players go on TV. We've seen Emmanuel Acho. Today we saw Gerald McCoy kind of put out some terrible claims despite playing at the highest level. And I think people like that kind of show that you don't need to have played at a high level or any level to be able to analyze or, be smart about the game of football.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's respectable of you addressing that. I wasn't gonna say anything, um, but I never really said that you need to, because obviously that is discrediting a huge number of people, which I would not do. Women and people that didn't play in general. I just said that you learn a lot from playing. You just do. I think, and it's more of something I'm saying to give myself credibility, which I think I deserve, because I really did put a lot of time in playing and studying and whatever. Um, but again, you don't have to. Of course, there's other ways. You just have different experience, different, life story or whatever. But yeah.
Like, what would be, I guess my question is, like, are you talking about the team, like team building and understanding relationships within a team aspect of football? Are you talking about like weight room and and the conditioning stuff like that when it comes to football? Because like otherwise, like what would be the difference between football and say basketball, which I played in high school? Like what would be the difference between those two? Or are you specifically talking about like, I don't know, like watching film or something, which you can do if you've never played. You just wouldn't be doing it as part of a team setting. So I guess like that's where I've been a little bit confused about like what really matters from that playing football experience.
It's a lot of things, but first of all, the dedication, and which is not specific to football, but a big thing is, you know, putting the helmet on and feeling fear. Being like I played scared a lot, and just and you don't have to have played to understand this, but to just appreciate the sacrifice that these guys make, the mentality that you need to play the game. Um, and the pain that you feel when you get, hit really hard, you get your bell rung, and just things like that. Just the physicality and the fear, the intimidation, the fact about bullies and aggression, hitting, um, mainly stuff like that, and also the plays you learn, the plays, and you run the plays, you experience the plays, and yeah, you can't deny that you learn a lot through playing, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever denied that. I think where I was always confused when you talked about that was like the extent to which it matters, because like yeah, like I think the physicality thing, you don't really get that in basketball. I guess like that's where I'm like, okay, if you play lacrosse though, or you played wrestling, where it's not as physical, but it's still contact sport, you're still hitting, right? Like lacrosse people have to wear masks for a reason, but
Hmm.
wrestling people, they're always in contact with another person. Like the physicality you get from football, like can you not find that anywhere else and still be able to understand the game at a high level?
Maybe, but it's different. We used to line up like 10 yards away and just run head into each other. Like I did that so many times, and I would always try and count where the big guy was in the other line and try and fit myself in the line so I didn't have to go up against him, and
Mhm.
sometimes I just had to. And I don't think you really do that in any other sport where you just run head on and just like smash. It's just a brutal thing. And that football is a brutal game. Guys are getting lifelong injuries every
Mhm.
game. Um, so you can appreciate that without playing for sure, but um, you know, you definitely appreciate it if you play, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And like I'm never, I won't deny your experience and that idea of like going up against a bigger guy. I think again, like I think you can find that kind of fear or mentality in other sports. Like, okay, I was a like 6'1" kind of skinny small forward. If I ever got matched up on a 6'8" center who weighed 100 pounds more than me, like yeah, like if I had to box him out, like yeah, I was like, okay,
Hmm.
fuck, like I have to get this done. So I think like yeah, maybe the amount of fear, the physicality is not at the level of football because that's probably the most physical sport in the world. But I do
Hmm.
think you can get that idea of physicality and fear from other sports, which is again where I've kind of pushed back a little bit on.
Yeah, yeah, that's understandable. All I was saying was that in my tweet, which I think that got a lot of responses or whatever, I said that playing football gives you a lot of insight, something along those lines. It doesn't. I didn't say you need it or without it you can't speak on it or anything like that. But I think we would agree that you do learn from playing. Right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Is that is that all we got for that topic?
I think so.
All right. Well, is there anything else? We got 3 minutes. We could wrap it up.
Yeah, we could probably wrap it up. Any other topic, we'd probably go over your time limit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I enjoyed this talk. I would be happy to have you back on. We could, talk again about whatever we may disagree on. I think disagreeing is important to, you know, find the best opinions or ideas. It's important to disagree. Can't all be agreeing on everything. You have held me accountable for my words, and I appreciate that. I've tried to do that the same for you.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come talk with me. I think this was, at least if nothing else, hopefully it was fun. It was interesting. It was entertaining. And yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we were able to finally get a day and time figured out. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll probably disagree on things in the future, but that's okay. Again, you're entitled to your own opinion, and we can just like refer this video to other people if they ever said like, oh, like you guys should like box or you guys should like
Nah,
do a video together. Like we've now gone past that point. So yeah, this was
nah.
good. Glad we were able to talk it out, and
Yeah.
hope we were able to both kind of learn a little bit.
Yeah. And, I never wanted to box or anything like that. I
That was
don't,
other people. It wasn't.
yeah.
I don't resort to violence for things like that. But
No, me neither.
this was good.
And I will acknowledge I'm an annoying person on Twitter. I'm very obnoxious, and that's just kind of how I do it. Um, and yeah, so I guess that's it. Thank you, Arjun, for coming on, and hopefully let's do this again sometime.
Sounds good. Have a good day, man.
All right, cheers, bolt up. Oh wait, you know what? I didn't go over these comments. I got like 17 comments. Should I go over these real quick?
Yeah, up to you.
Okay. Can you see these?
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay, the first one. A day we all saw coming. Is this stepbrothers? Did we just become friends? Oh, that's cute. There are a few 6'1", 6'2" halfbacks in the draft. Yes, and I'd like one. Feel free to comment on any of these. It's not about balance, it's about effectiveness. Okay. Eddie Dale Jr. It's pretty fair to say that they should have gotten a tight end like Payne Durham. I actually don't know who that is. But yeah, we could use help at tight end. Sebastian Joseph Day was brought in to stop the run. 2022 was his best season. Can't be too mad at him. I think he's good, but I think we can improve there. I wouldn't mind trading down for the first rounder for an additional second to get a running back. Yeah, that could be a possibility. Maybe move the picks around.
Look, man, if Tom Telesco ever trades down, because he's never done it in the draft, if he ever trades down on draft day, he can do whatever the hell he wants, and I won't be mad. So if he wants to take a third round running back in the first round, by all means. But he's never traded down, so we can, unless if he's still the GM next year, like then I'd have to see him trade down first before I can ever entertain anyone saying they should trade down. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. And yeah, I just want to see Tom Telesco do different things. I just see him do the same stuff too often. I want to see him try new stuff, but his time might be coming to an end. So, okay, Josh Quipo, having a good any position will only help the team. Yeah, of course. On Arjun side, all right, you got one. Got Jacob Finazzo. I don't know what we were talking about at that time, but he's on your side. CT is a bit extreme in his reaching for an RB, but I get it. Who is CT?
Chargers truther.
Oh, shit, that's me. Yeah, okay, at least he gets it. Overcorrection is a thing. Yeah, you gotta be careful. But hey, undercorrecting is also a thing. Probably a good idea to try and run your team like the one that gets into the AFC Championship game every year. Yeah, can't disagree there, I guess. One contract running backs. I don't see things so black and white though, sometimes guys deserve something. I don't know. It's not always black and white. That's an expensive fuck it. Yeah, it probably would be. They're not in a position to needlessly eat dead money, especially for washed up running backs. Yeah, that's a fair opinion. That's fine. But I would. Josh Quepo, just two more here. Got to do something different because you got to do something different. Yeah, I mean, shoot. Maybe it sounds kind of silly, but I do feel that. I do feel that way. Trading up for Melvin was stupid too. I don't think so because we got Melvin and he helped. That's my opinion. We do need to run the ball better. Yeah, of course. Oh, shit. Arjun cooked. All right, you cooked, man.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, man. So that's it. Thank you. Hope to have you again sometime. And yeah, that's it.
Yep. Go Chargers.
Go Chargers. All right, man. Have a good day. Thanks again.
All right.
Later.